In a dramatic escalation of his rapidly deteriorating fortunes, Prince Harry has found himself at the epicenter of an explosive visa scandal, one that has not only stripped him of his lavish Montecito estate, but culminated in his deportation from the United States under a cloud of international ignominy. The Duke of Sussex's stunning reversal of fate was catalyzed by a seemingly innocuous review of his immigration files by U.S. authorities, a cursory investigation that metastasized into a legal conflagration upon the discovery of what officials have described as brazenly false statements and blatantly fraudulent misrepresentations, woven throughout his original visa application. The evidence before us paints a damning portrait of what appears to be a systematic effort by Prince Harry and his handlers to deliberately mislead and deceive federal immigration authorities, U.S. Attorney Julian Assange stated in a blistering rebuke announcing the initiation of deportation proceedings. Visas to enter and reside within the United States are not the playthings of the wealthy and entitled to be gained through duplicity and falsehood. They represent a profound trust bestowed upon foreign nationals, a trust that Prince Harry has shattered beyond repair. The first inklings of the firestorm to come surfaced, and immigration reviewers tasked with renewing Harry's residency status raised red flags over a litany of irregularities and omissions that pockmarked the formerly minor royal's initial paperwork. Discrepancies ranging from the prince's financial wherewithal being grossly overstated, to his place of intended residence in the United States proving to be dramatically misrepresented, eroded any semblance of plausible deniability and cast an unmistakable pall of mendacity over the entirety of his immigration file. Frankly, the depth and breadth of the duplicity we uncovered was staggering, confided Immigration Services Officer Rachel Dunning, whose routine clerical review of Harry's case first raised alarms about its veracity. It quickly became clear that virtually every aspect of his original filing, from his personal net worth and stated employment prospects, to the very details of where he intended to reside, was little more than an elaborately constructed web of half-truths and outright fabrications. As the extent of the alleged subterfuge was laid bare before the American legal system's unforgiving gaze, a portrait emerged of a systemic conspiracy involving not just Prince Harry himself, but an alleged supporting cast of facilitators and co-conspirators, both within his recently estranged ranks of royal handlers and among his newly adopted coterie of Hollywood power brokers and media mogul benefactors. Lurid tales began to circulate alleging quid pro quo arrangements with immigration fixers and elaborate financial obfuscation schemes, all in the service of fraudulently securing the prince's American residency. We have ample evidence to indicate that this was no mere oversight or paperwork mistake, but rather the product of a sprawling and deliberate effort to circumvent our laws through any illicit means necessary, Assange proclaimed as the investigative tentacles first began to unfurl in the direction of Harry's purported confederates. Make no mistake, all parties involved in this egregious criminal conspiracy will be held to account. For Prince Harry himself, however, the first tangible repercussions have already been brutally rendered in both a legal and personal sense. With the validity of his original visa now fatally compromised by the specter of fraud, U.S. immigration authorities have moved decisively to not only terminate his residency status, but initiate deportation proceedings that will permanently bar the embattled royal exile from American shores, barring a Herculean legal intervention. Based on the overwhelming evidence of material misrepresentation and deliberate falsification of his immigration forms, this office has ordered Prince Harry to be deported from the United States with immediate effect, a grim-faced Assange stated during a media briefing. He has 30 days to make arrangements to depart the country before federal marshals will be compelled to apprehend and forcibly remove him from our borders. In a further escalation of his plight, the legal woes now engulfing Harry have extended beyond his mere residency status to put his most valuable American asset, his multi-million-dollar Montecito, California estate, in the government's unforgiving crosshairs. Invoking the formidable statutes governing the seizing of real property and assets linked to criminal proceedings, the U.S. Attorney's Office has already initiated forfeiture actions against the sumptuous 18,000-square-foot Spanish colonial-style villa that Harry had formerly called home. Given the overwhelming evidence that this estate and its acquisition were inextricably linked to the fraudulent misrepresentations contained within Prince Harry's immigration filings, we have moved to seize the property as potential proceeds of criminal conduct pending final adjudication, Assange explained with a solemnity that underscored the gravity of the situation now confronting the Duke. His status as a foreign royal affords him no immunity or exemption from our laws. In the eyes of justice, he is a mere alleged criminal defendant whose ill-gotten real estate holdings are subject to civil forfeiture like any other. The dizzying freefall from grace for the formerly minor royal has unfolded with a breathtaking velocity, a months-long descent from comfortable opulence to outright legal pariah that has seemingly left Harry adrift and reeling, struggling to maintain even a semblance of defiance amidst the unrelenting onslaught of reverberating consequences. I don't understand how this all spiraled so far out of control so quickly," the Duke lamented in an impromptu statement to the media, his cultured British baritone tinged with inflections of bewilderment bordering on panic. "One moment I was contentedly ensconced in my Montecito estate, believing I'd finally found lasting peace and tranquility, and the next I'm being threatened with deportation and the literal seizure of my home, like some sort of common criminal." As the beleaguered royal sought to mount a public defense of his actions, deflections and finger-pointing soon gave way to an aura of dawning self-awareness over the chasm his hubris and sense of entitlement had wrought. "I can't pretend any longer that my actions were born solely out of nobility or virtue. I wanted the American dream, a lavish estate and all the trappings of opulence, and I let that cloud my judgment," Harry admitted, his shoulders slumping in an uncharacteristic display of vulnerability. "But I never imagined it would escalate to the point of me facing losing it all again, of potentially being rendered homeless and forced into exile for a second time." For the American legal apparatus now bearing down upon him, however, such admissions of culpability and laments of regret have rung increasingly hollow, perceived as little more than empty gestures from a professed prince whose sense of entitlement may have finally caught up to him in devastating fashion. Make no mistake, while Mr. Harry's newly adopted tone of contrition is duly noted, it in no way mitigates or excuses the severity of the offenses he is accused of perpetrating, Asante stated in an rejoinder that fairly dripped with disdain for the former royal's perceived sense of nobility. "He willfully and deliberately sought to defraud the United States government and its citizens through an unconscionable pattern of lies and deceit. Such conduct simply cannot be hand-waved away, no matter how contritely he may now project." As the legal eagles continue circling and rending their talons into the Duke's ever-diminishing sphere of privilege and comfort, questions have begun to percolate about what awaits the beleaguered Harry should the worst come to pass. Will he slink back to the United Kingdom, prodigal son in hand, or will he embrace a new, humbler sojourn into the depths of self-imposed exile? More urgently, where might safe harbor exist for a disgraced former royal now branded by the long arm of American justice as little more than a common criminal and fraudster? For those few remaining stalwarts still clinging to Prince Harry's fading aura of regal mystique, the unraveling of his American dream has carried with it the unmistakable stench of Greek tragedy. Here was a figure who had cast off the gilded shackles of aristocratic birthright in pursuit of freedom, only to become ensnared in the far more unforgiving webs of avarice and deception, a modern Icarus whose waxen wings of privilege melted against the insatiable glare of his own overreaching ambitions. It's all just so unutterably sad to see it unfold.